Folks, welcome into another episode of That Betting Show, August 13th, 2019. Yes, this is your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. He's Teddy Cifuentes. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, right side VP. Antonio Brown coming back to the Raiders just in time for Hard Knocks. And Gleyber Torres blasts 3 more home runs as the assault from the Yankees on the Orioles continues. Let's get right into the hot topics here. Guess who's back? Back again. Yes, he is, Teddy. Thank you for that reference a little bit earlier in the day today. Antonio Brown returns to Napa to join the Raiders. But the helmet grievance doesn't go his way, says he doesn't care. And how about this one, Teddy? Just as we're going on the air, a tweet comes out from Antonio Brown. Hey, anybody out there, if you have a helmet that I need, please send it to me. This story can't get any better, and HBO, Teddy, has to be loving this.
Of course, but these are the types of stories that get a lot of headlines in August that won't matter one iota once September rolls around. Yes, the Raiders will find a way to get Antonio Brown on the field. Antonio Brown's going to figure out a helmet that he can wear, that he's comfortable with, and all of this will be nothing. All that being said, and Brown is not going to walk away from the $50 million that he signed for this past offseason. But the Raiders are still lined at 6 wins, and when you look at their schedule, you understand why. Look at the first 7 games. Denver at home, Kansas City at home. Then at Minnesota, at Indy, London versus the Bears, so neutral site versus the Bears, at Green Bay, at Houston. They can win 2 games out of that bunch. They're off to a good start. So Antonio Brown's situation won't be what we're talking about with the Raiders once September and October rolls around. Nice preseason fodder, meaningless from a point spread perspective.
I'll tell you right now, those producers, Teddy, HBO, the NFL, they have to love it. All eyes will be on Hard Knocks for the rest of the summer just to see the antics of Antonio Brown. We'll keep you posted here each and every day on That Betting Show. Let's talk a little MLB on Monday and what took place. And, Teddy, I feel like we should have a stake in this, right? Forget about us having tickets, per se, on the Cleveland Indians, but I feel like we have a stake because we've spoken this into existence here and have told you for weeks and weeks and weeks, watch out for those Cleveland Indians. They finally do it, Teddy. On Monday, Carlos Santana's walk-off blast leads them into first place by a half game. And how about those Yankees, Teddy? Blast away again on the Orioles. We opened the show with it. Gleyber Torres, 3 more home runs. He has 13 home runs, Teddy, by himself. Not for the season, not versus the AL or the NL, versus one team as the Yankees continue to bomb away on the Orioles here. And how about those Blue Jays going north of the border? The exchange rate, Teddy, comes out to 19 runs for the Jays. Crazy night, a lot of home runs, as we've seen all year in Major League Baseball.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about Toronto for a minute, because the Blue Jays now 16-15 since the All-Star break. Their young hitters have found a little rhythm, and all the sons of the former ball players that are prospects for Toronto, man, they're hitting the ball right now. And again, when you have a team that's a dog every day or almost every day, and they go 16-15 over a month-long span, you're going to make money with that team. And obviously, that's the Blue Jays right now. You talked about some of the insanity last night with, Santana's home run to give the Indians the win, the Blue Jays hanging 19, that crazy game between the Nationals and the Reds last night where Washington's bullpen did everything they could to blow a 5-run lead, but didn't quite do it. Pittsburgh getting going yesterday. What was it last night? It was a huge night for over-bettors in MLB. Every single game went over the total except for one, and that was that Arizona-Colorado game we previewed yesterday that pushed with a total of 14. So when every game goes over except for the one that pushes at 14, Grand Salami flew over the total last night. That doesn't happen every day.
No, it certainly doesn't. Taking a look, a little bit of that nightcap, Teddy, with the Pirates offense waking up, ending that long slide. And I take a look at that, and I see Mike Trout on the opposite side. And I say, you know what, playing second fiddle. And I guess he likes being out in Los Angeles, being that second fiddle where, nobody really hates the Angels. But would be a nice fit? He's got a 10-year contract out that, Teddy. There's a spot open, I'm hearing, out in Las Vegas, over by the Rio. Might be able to build a nice little, stadium down there to try to get him to Las Vegas if he can get traded. Got to get him out of L.A. He's too good of a player not to be seen, Teddy, and he would shine bright in those Vegas lights in a couple years if they do get a Major League Baseball team. But now here's what we like to talk about each and every day. As we circle the globe and try to get you that NFL information that you need just to keep and, wet your beak here heading into week 2, the Redskins are digging in. We're not trading. He's not going anywhere. And that's for their all-pro tackle, Trent Williams, who says, you know what? I don't like the way I've been treated around here. It's not even the fact of my money right now. It's the fact that the misdiagnosis of a lump, which was removed, that was a tumor in his head. He says he's not coming back. We'll see how that plays out. We talked about it yesterday, Teddy, and this is real. The Jets now, Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams says, you know what? I'll play cornerback if you need it to me. It's dire straits in the New York Jets secondary heading into the football season this year. And my favorite one of the day, $30 million. I'm worth $40 million. Those Cowboys got some guys on their payroll that are asking for a ton of money, and it should be interesting to see how it plays out, Teddy, the rest of the summer.
It sure does. And when we look at the top quarterback salaries from 2018, for example, all right, the top 5 in the NFL, you had Garoppolo, San Fran didn't make the playoffs. You had Stafford, Lions didn't make the playoffs. You had Carr, Raiders didn't make the playoffs. You had Flacco. Oh, Baltimore made the playoffs, but Flacco was benched by that time. And you had Cousins, who was a major disappointment in Minnesota, and the Vikings didn't make the playoffs. When you start talking about paying quarterbacks $40 million a year, guess what happens? The rest of the roster isn't as good. And what happens when the rest of the roster isn't as good? You get holes, and you don't make the playoffs, like the team that had the top QB salaries last year. So Dallas in a conundrum here. I don't know what I do if I'm the Cowboys. They probably got to pay everybody. They got to pay Zeke. They got to pay Dak. That's the face. Those are the face of the franchise, which doesn't bode well for the Cowboys' long-term chances moving forward. Once they pay those guys, they're going to be up against the cap moving forward year after year after year. So if Dallas is going to do something, maybe this is the year that they do it. You talk about the Jets' quarterback injuries, and this matters, particularly in the preseason. This matters. Trumaine Johnson, the latest guy to get hurt. He suffered a hamstring injury on an interception. Adam Gase, quote, anytime that a guy makes a living running, has a hamstring, you just kind of see how it goes. He's just going to have to get a lot of treatment and get back as fast as possible. Talking about the cornerback position for the Jets, Gase, quote, right now we'll just keep rotating guys in there. We're just going to keep competing. That's what we have to do. Some young guys are going to have to step up. They're going to have to play well. Well, easy enough to say, not easy enough to produce on the field. I wonder if the Jets, there's a reason that Atlanta is favored this week, despite the fact that the Falcons have lost 11 consecutive preseason games.
Nice little segue there, Teddy. As we move into overnight line movers, you know where the best place to catch these line moves is SBRodds.com, the only place you should be checking on the internet. And speaking of teams that go in runs, how about Baltimore on the move again? This is a team, Teddy, with a 14-game win streak in play for the preseason, and we're seeing that line on the move. Opened up at 3.5, goes to 4.5. Now I'm checking SBRodds.com, Teddy, as we're filming. I'm even seeing 5s out there. People can't get enough of those Ravens, Teddy.
Sure, and there's a number of issues here why Baltimore is taking money. It starts with the fact that when any team that's got a 14-game preseason winning streak, you know the coach cares. Harbaugh cares about winning in August. Second, what did we talk about last week? Your basic preseason goals, you want to be on blitzing teams and against teams that are facing blitzing teams. Well, last week the Ravens were blitzing all over the place, and the Jags had a total of 2.1 yards per play in that contest. Baltimore's going to blitz. Third factor, Ravens starters could play up to a full half in this ball game. You know, there's been talk that they're going to be well into the second quarter, and maybe that full half. Lamar Jackson needs work, obviously, an inexperienced quarterback who's going to be the starter this season. And the Packers secondary, look, Green Bay played well for about 2.5, 3 quarters. Their secondary got torched late last week, and the market's reacting to that with some of this Baltimore money. But most of it's bet on Baltimore. Obviously, when you have this type of track record, the betting markets don't sleep on it.
How about this one, Teddy? Andrew Luck not in, no problem. How about this line move here? Opened up at a pick'em, and the Colts line moves 3 points in their favor. Now sitting at a -3 across the board at SBRodds.com versus those Cleveland Browns, Teddy, which people can't get enough of. Now, also the one thing that I do want to take pick your brain a little bit about here is it sort of makes sense here. You're seeing now the totals last week. Remember, 31.5, 32.5, 33.5. Now as more of the starters come in, we see these lines push further north. This total sitting at 43. But it's interesting to me, Teddy. People couldn't get enough of the Browns last week. Now that money's switching up against the Browns this week, Teddy.
No. Remember, last week, initially, the early week move was towards the Redskins. And the Redskins, I mean, that was a 3.5, 4-point move against Cleveland. And then the 24 hours before kickoff, the money came back on the Browns, and they closed favorites in that ballgame. But I put a Cleveland plus 1.5 ticket in my pocket. I believe that line opened Browns -3 or pretty close to it, maybe 2.5. So the early week money against Cleveland came last week and is coming against this week. I don't see it, to be perfectly honest. I understand how preseason line moves and what caused them to move. And you're looking at this line, and it looks like opinion to me. The Colts looked horrible last week. And Frank Reich was not amused by their performance. Chad Kelly is a third-string quarterback, may well be a bet-on guy, but Phillip Walker is not a bet-on QB in the preseason. He was pretty rough last week. I'm not convinced he's going to be better here. And Garrett Gilbert for Cleveland is most assuredly a bet-on QB in the second half. We saw it last year. We saw it last week. So I'm a little bit surprised by this move. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some buyback on Cleveland between now and kickoff.
These are fun to take a look at because we have a third game here, and these games aren't even getting played yet, but they had a lot of movement early in the week. How about this monster move for the NFL game? Where is it? In Hawaii. It's going to take place between the Cowboys and the Rams. Now, you see the Rams currently sitting there +2.5, +3. If we take a look at SBRodds.com, Teddy, they opened as favorites, checking out across the board, -3s, -4s for the Rams, completely flipping over to the Cowboys here. That's going to be a total also of 43.5. What's causing this line move, Teddy?
Honestly, it's the single worst line I've seen all year. I was stunned. I was stunned to see L.A. as the chalk in this game, let alone a field goal chalk in this game. And the betting market said, even after the 5.5-point line move, really it opened. Most books it were 3, and now it's 2.5 the other way. So you have 3, and then to pick them, and then 2.5. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas goes off 4 or 5 in this ball game. I really wouldn't. It was that bad of a line, and you don't see that in August very often. But it's very clear that the Rams have no interest in the preseason whatsoever. We saw it in week 1 against Oakland. And remember, they're up in Napa drinking wine with the Raiders. They fly home for a minute and then fly out to Hawaii. The markets are saying the Rams aren't interested, and certainly, this has been a big move. We don't often talk about. When you see people trying to sell plays, huge market mistake, and odds makers got it wrong. Odds makers don't get a lot of games wrong. They got this one dead wrong. Really bad opening line. And, they may well pay for it unless somehow or other the Rams show up and play on Saturday. Or is that Saturday or Sunday? This weekend.
Yep, this weekend game. It'll be a lot of fun to see, and we'll keep an eye on to see where these lines move each and every day right here on That Betting Show, but certainly some big line movers early in preseason week 2. Watch what you bet right here on That Betting Show. Game 2 of a doubleheader. Now, normally, Teddy and I don't go over game 2s and sort of cap the game situation, but I thought this might have been a pretty good talking point to go over because we're taking a look at the White Sox, and anywhere on SBRodds.com, Cole versus Nova, we're talking about an opening line, -285, Teddy, -300. I'm now seeing -350 offshore for the second game of the doubleheader. And the reason why I wanted to bring this game up is not so much to cap it, but maybe an opportunity, because as the game's going on, you could still bet into game number 2. Maybe if there's a longer bullpen session or, the Astros win easy. Is there an advantage, Teddy, to maybe sitting back and watching game 1 and finding that advantage on game 2? Because typically, look, you might find -150s, -160s, -200s, but having a favorite of that monster proportion on the doubleheader certainly raised my eye on this one.
Sure, and the irony, of course, is that Nova, who has a terrible track record and a terrible reputation in the betting markets, he's pitched well since the All-Star break. He's in his best form of the season by far. So it's not like the Astros are going against a pitcher who can't get anybody out right now. Nova's been getting batters out, his last 4 or 5 starts. He's been rock solid. Of course, the Astros are 16-3 in Cole's last 19 in starts, and 11 of their last 12 opponents in Cole's starts have been held to 3 runs or less for the full game. But you ask, do you want to pay attention to game 1 if you're going to get involved in game 2? I'll make it very clear. I don't play game 2s of doubleheaders unless I'm watching game 1 and I see something that makes me want to bet game 2. So it is absolutely a watch and learn situation. If you want to bet game 2, you better know what happened in game 1.
It will be interesting, Teddy, because even in the first game today in that doubleheader, it's going to get underway at 4 Eastern, almost close to -300 in that situation as well. And let's also not forget, this is the team, the Astros, that on Sunday were favored at -550 at some outlets there in Las Vegas. An amazing run here, and people can't seem to get enough of those Houston Astros. Let's take a look at another game last night, Teddy. This one looked like it was going to be a breeze, a walk in the books here. Washington looking to make it 2 in a row over the Reds. As we head into play tonight, Wood versus Ross. Now, what's interesting is Ross came up trying to stretch the guy out, more of a bullpen guy, innings here, innings there, gets lit up after he has an opener in the game versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, then has back-to-back 2 really good outings, and he's going to take the mound again tonight. Should be an interesting one down in D.C., Teddy. What are we looking at here tonight?
And in some ways, Ross is like Nova in the sense of the markets don't really like him. His long-term numbers are mediocre on a good day. But when he's in solid current form, I've seen it a couple times from Joe Ross where he's able to keep that up. And he's had a bad season. What has he got? A 6.75 ERA on the season. But his last two starts have been gems. 1 hit and 5 1/3 against Arizona, 3 hits and 6 scoreless against San Fran. That's a positive sign, and maybe a guy who could offer some semblance of bet on moving forward. Of course, Alex Wood wasn't real good in his last start for Cincy. 5 runs, 8 hits in 3 innings against the Cubs. Look, I had the Nats last night. It was a sweat and a half. 7-2 lead in the 8th, ends up being a 7-6 final, the tying run on second base. The bullpen's still a problem for Washington, and the closer, not that you necessarily want him, but Sean Doolittle not going to be available this evening. That's a concern, but Washington's a little bit better than Cincy. It showed last night. They've won 5 out of 7. That's the only way I would look in this one, despite those bullpen concerns. Maybe Nats' first 5 might be the better way to go if you don't trust their pen late.
Yeah, tough one here. We only had one start from Scherzer since July 6th up till now. We'll see. He's going to throw a simulated game to see if he gets back. But you're talking about that Nationals bullpen, Teddy. Obviously signing Fernando Rodney. Also updated this morning, Greg Holland welcome in the town. They are trying everything to try to pull that bullpen back together, and nothing seems to be working this time. So we'll keep an eye on those Nationals as they move forward. But how about the Padres looking to rebound from a Rays stomping? And why not, Teddy? The Rays ought to petition and say, hey, you know what? Why don't we just go on the road for the rest of the year as opposed to building 2 stadiums, one in Tampa and one in Montreal? Staying on the road seems to be the tonic that ails all down in Tampa. 39-22 on the road. Tonight's going to be McKay and Lauer live from Petco Ballpark.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't make a case for the Padres. I can't. We talked about it yesterday, about how Tampa continues to be this team that nobody knows who's on Tampa Bay, and they have no stars, and they don't get TV games, and teams like that retain their value. When they're winning on the road, they retain a bunch of value. Here's this kid McKay. He's a first baseman and a pitcher. 15 homers, 80 RBIs in the minors, and he's pitching today. He was the nation's top baseball player, won the Golden Spikes Award in 2017. And Kevin Cash is like, yeah, we like the concept of him being in the lineup and getting at bats in San Diego. 6 starts so far. He's worked 29.2 innings. Mediocre numbers, but the strikeout ratio is there. And the Padres stink right now. I don't know what to say about San Diego. You have Lauer's got a 6.87 ERA since returning to the rotation on July 19th. Andy Green keeps talking about we have to pitch longer into games. Green, quote, we've been encouraged by Eric's last couple of outings. He's been through a lot, but the last couple of times out, he's been pitching with his command and his mix. Well, it hasn't showed up on the scoreboard just yet. He's been on the bereavement list following the death of his father. He hasn't completed 7 innings since June. I don't want San Diego. It's just that simple. So it's Tampa or pass for this better.
Yeah, it was interesting, Teddy, because when you take a look at McKay, you're right. When you're doing some research or some background checking a couple weeks ago, I kept checking the stats. Like, why do they keep on leading with this guy's hitting statistics? Well, therefore so. Obviously a pretty good athlete overall in his time. We'll see if that plays out and maybe gets that extra base knock enough to give him a win or even push that game over the total. We'll find out. Here's a good one today, off the mic segment. Now, this is first world problems here. If you've ever walked the strip, if you've ever been to the casino or seen Teddy on camera, he's blinged out. He's got the rolly popping. He's got the chains hanging down here. Alex Rodriguez, Teddy, robbed of $500,000 worth of jewelry. Now, when you say like, oh, I can't believe it. They got into his house. They took his wife, Jennifer Lopez's, rings. They got all his stuff here. No, Teddy, this is just, you know what? I'm going to go into the restaurant here. Let me take off $500,000 in jewelry before I go in and just leave it in the SUV. Some of these stories that come out are outrageous, and I was always under the proponent, Teddy. You should not be able to get jewelry insured for this exact reason. If you have that much money to spend on jewelry and you lose it, buy some more yourself, Teddy. Your thoughts on being blinged out with A-Rod here?
So let's start with this, all right? As a player, everybody hated A-Rod. Everybody. Was a giant asshole. Nobody liked him wherever he went. As a fan, nobody liked A-Rod. A-Rod was a jerk. He didn't get, underperformed when it mattered most. It wasn't a guy. A-Rod was not going to win any popularity awards. Then all of a sudden he marries J-Lo and now he's cool again? I don't get it. Like, how did this guy save his reputation? Yeah, you see me all blinged out. Yeah, that's me. Jewelry is stupid. Okay? It's let's walk around and show you how rich I am with just my jewels. Come on. It's stupid. Okay, I understand. If you want to bling out, knock yourself out. not my deal. But to say, all right, I'm going to take $500,000 and leave it in the car, that's stupid. A-Rod is stupid. You deserve to lose that jewelry. Bye-bye. I hope I never hear from that guy again, but we know that we will.
Yep, absolutely. I remember in the book that Joe Torre wrote when he was with the Yankees and A-Rod was there, and A-Rod was struggling, Teddy, was trying to be more of a clubhouse type guy. So he asked Joe Torre what he thought he should do. So Joe says, you know what? Just be one of the guys. Come in. Don't ask the clubhouse patron to make your coffee. Go get your own cup of coffee. So he comes in the next day. A-Rod comes back in the office and says, all right, Joe, I got my own cup of coffee. What should I do next year? That tells you A-Rod in a nutshell right here. Absolutely outrageous stuff continues to come out. We'll keep an eye on A-Rod as the rest of the summer goes along because he is on Sunday Night Baseball. We'll see if anything else gets stolen from his possession. But that'll do it today for That Betting Show for August 13, 2019. Of course, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs, getting you in and out in under 20 minutes or less. He's Teddy Sabranti. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, right side VP. We'll be back tomorrow, one step closer to a nice full slate of preseason action on Thursday. And of course, we'll hit that Major League Baseball card. Good luck tonight. We'll catch you tomorrow.